All I know is it's called Minecraft. I couldn't do the first thing.
I didn't know that was what it was called, but I know the game.
Yeah. Well, digital Legos is sort of the best description I can describe, and that probably doesn't touch it all.
They have Legoland down close to where
Oh, we just went there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. 4 o'clock, 1600 military time. Commissioner Cage with us, and we'll call to order and do a roll call. Go ahead. Well, do you want me to ask? Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Here. He's excused.
Here.
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 Thank you very much. Stand for flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everybody. This is a workshop. It's not a special meeting workshop. It's not a regular board meeting. That'll be next Wednesday at 4 o'clock. We take testimony from the public and also have a union report at our regular meetings. This is just a public meeting with our attorney, Rich Davis, to talk about legal requirements around selecting the next fire chief. I just wanted that to be out on the record so that everybody could hear what he had to say. Questions can be asked of Rich by board members, not the public here. So I'm just saying board members can ask away if they have particular questions they'd like him to address. When we are done with that part of it, then I will have non-board members leave the room, and we're going to have an executive session allowable under RCW 42.30.110 sub 1 sub G to review the performance of an employee. When we're done with that, I guess we'll have a public board discussion, although I don't know exactly on what. That could be just commissioner comments, and then we adjourn. Other people are scheduled to use this room at 6 o'clock. It is fully my intention to be gone, way gone out of here before 6. We're not going to have some meeting that, that expands and gets right pushing into that time zone. And I'm hoping we can be completely finished with this by 5:30. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. So with that, Rich, can you hear me?
We're having difficulty getting Richard on right now.
Okay, well,
Forwarded to him the link.
I wish I had music and a song and dance to do here, or maybe that wouldn't be so good, but that's, well, stand by and we'll, don't want to suffer death by Zoom here, so. While I am waiting for this, do other board members have to make any quick comments for right now?
Did we approve the agenda?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. I need a motion. I've said what the agenda is, but I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Also moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Holly second. Moved to agenda. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. Agenda is approved. Thank you very much for that. My fault. Okay, so now, like I said, when we get Rich Davis on, we'll have a discussion about legal requirements around selecting the next fire chief.
He's waiting in the lobby and he's not in this lobby, so.
The wrong lobby? Oh, that's interesting.
Oh, there he is. Perfect.
I see Rick Cade's name over there, so Rick's watching. Oh, here we go. We're about to get started here, so. There he is. Rich, can you hear me okay? Can we turn him up or turn that microphone up so we can hear him? Because all I was picking him up was off of that screen.
Are you able to turn it up at all, Teresa?
Can we have a sound check?
Barely.
Barely.
Yeah, it's just coming from my computer right now, Teresa.
Keep talking for a second, Rich. Just okay. Keep talking. I'm.
Can you turn yours up, dude? Should I do this one, Teresa? The same as camera? Yeah. Okay, can you do a check again?
Yep.
Oh.
That's good.
Perfect.
Okay. Are we?
Thank you.
Just try that again, Rich. So I think we got you dialed in. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear him? Okay. Rich, go ahead. This is Rich Davis, the attorney to North County Regional Fire Authority. Your voice just dropped down. But okay, you're back up. Okay, never mind. Your sound's okay.
Okay. I am going to share my screen here. So let me get my presentation up. Begin. Okay, so I was asked to put on a presentation as to the hiring process under which the North County Governing Board is obligated in terms of hiring its next fire chief. And so this is a fairly short presentation, but I'll just kind of get right into it. And if there's questions along the way, let me know. I want to be clear that what I'm talking about today is just the legal requirements that are imposed on the Governing Board of North County Regional Fire Authority for hiring its next fire chief. That's all I'm talking about today. I'm not going to be making any commentary on Deputy Chief Kraske or his suitability to be the next fire chief. I'm not going to be offering any commentary on any planning committee discussions that may have happened between the North County folks and the city of Arlington folks that involved in the annexation of the city into the RFA. And this is not intended to be a recommendation for any particular approach for the governing board in hiring its next fire chief. This is really just a discussion about the legal requirements and that the board is under. So first of all, look at the RFA plan. And the RFA plan states in section 9 that the fire chief shall at all times be appointed and serve at the pleasure of the governing board pursuant to a written employment contract. Now, the RFA plan itself does not discuss who will be the fire chief or who will serve as the successor to Chief Cermak when he leaves employment of North County. The other thing to look at is the statute that deals with regional fire authorities, and the operative statute there is 5226.090, which says the governing board may hire, manage, and terminate employees. In other words, the governing board is responsible by statute for the hiring, the managing, and termination of all employees of the RFA. As a practical matter, however, and as you do at North County, that authority is delegated oftentimes to the fire chief to hire the personnel that are underneath the chief. So everybody reports up the chain of command to the fire chief, and the board just remains responsible for hiring the chief. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. The board could be responsible for hiring other individual employees, but that's typically how it works. How does the governing board select a fire chief? Well, that is what is known under the Open Public Meetings Act as a final action. Anytime you take action, you're doing it either by motion or resolution. That's a final action, which requires a majority vote of the commissioners in an open public session at a meeting where you have a quorum of the commissioners that are present. So any action that would be taken, in a different manner than that would be void. So in other words, things like promises that might have been made by an individual commissioner or several commissioners, or discussions, assurances, and those kinds of things. Anything essentially that's made without a majority vote of the governing board in an open public meeting would not be legally binding on the board. So we look at RCW 5226, and we find that there's nothing in that statute that imposes a legal requirement on the governing board to hire a fire chief. So that means that all options are really on the table. There is an option of going out to a competitive process and using a placement agency to locate chiefs who may be interested in being the fire chief at North County Regional Fire Authority. You have the ability to promote an existing employee to the position of fire chief. You could also, if you knew of someone at another agency who was prepared to move and was well qualified for the position, you could just offer that position and hire that individual laterally. So in other words, the governing board really has wide discretion on how to hire its fire chief. And in the interim, if for some reason Chief Cermak were to separate from employment, the governing board would have the sole authority to select an interim fire chief while going through some more formal process. Now, there's been comments made that I've heard at public meetings that there have been some understandings and agreements along the way that Chief Kraske may be the next fire chief. And so I went back to kind of explore this, and indeed there are comments within the minutes from those planning committee meetings that took place that reflect that there were discussions amongst the members of those committees that Chief Kraske may succeed to Chief Cermak after he retires or separates from employment. However, again, I wanted to note that those were discussions of the planning committee members, were not the final action of the governing board of North County. So any of those discussions by the committee, even if those were in the minutes themselves and the minutes were approved by the committee, those aren't binding on the RFA governing board. I've heard the term handshake deal or in some other terms, but again, those are not binding requirements on the governing board. So there are some binding documents that the governing board of North County Regional Fire Authority has executed. And one of them is is either executed or approved. The RFA plan was approved by the governing board. And when you look at that RFA plan, it says that Section 9 of the plan says that North County shall at all times be appointed. Says the fire chief of North County Regional Fire Authority shall at all times be appointed and serve at the pleasure of the governing board pursuant to a written employment agreement. There's nothing in the plan, however, that states who will be the fire chief either now or at any point in the future. You may recall that there was also an interlocal agreement, which I termed a transitional interlocal agreement, when the city of Arlington annexed into the RFA. And that agreement was really to implement the provisions of the RFA plan and the annexation of the city. Again, if you look at that agreement, it does not make any reference to a specific individual serving in the position of fire chief, either now or at some point in the future. The other document that the board approved was the resolution that approved the city's annexation into the RFA. So the process was really twofold. The city of Arlington requested annexation, and then North County Regional Fire Authority passed a resolution approving that annexation. That resolution says nothing, again, about who will be the chief either now or after the annexation. The only other document that really is kind of relevant to look at is the employment agreement. North County Regional Fire Authority has an employment agreement. It's a written document with Chief Kraske. He serves currently in the role of deputy chief pursuant to that agreement. It's a standard type of agreement in the sense that he is an at-will employee of the fire authority. That agreement only pertains to his position of deputy chief, talks about his roles and responsibilities, but it doesn't include any terms or conditions regarding succeeding to the position of fire chief when Chief Cermak either resigns or otherwise separates from employment with North County. So the last thing that I want to address is, could the governing board have, during the annexation discussion, could it have bound the board, a future governing board of North County Regional Authority, to have Chief Kraske succeed Chief Cermak? And this is sort of a gray and complicated area of the law with not a whole lot of authority. We have some attorney general opinions. So I'm not going to get into the details, but I wanted to bring this slide up just to indicate that there is authority out there that an elected board can't enter into an agreement that binds the core legislative functions of future elected boards. They can enter into agreements that relate to executive functions, but not the core legislative functions. And an employment agreement really is a core legislative function. Having said that, there is some more modern language from the Attorney General that Washington law may actually recognize a carve out or to allow a board to bind a future board on a legislative function as long as it's expressly authorized by statute. All of that is to say that if the governing board of North County Regional Fire Authority 4 years ago had wanted to, it probably could have, and it probably would have been in the employment agreement with Chief Kraske to include a provision that he would be next in line once Chief Cermak resigned or separated from employment. So that probably would have been enforceable. It's one of those things that because it's a little bit of a gray area, I, as the lawyer for North County Regional Fire Authority, would have raised that as an issue, but probably would have come down on the side of, yeah, it could have done that. But again, it would have had to approve that agreement in an open public session. So all of that said, the upshot of it is that it's really up to the sound discretion of the governing board as to to how it selects its next fire chief. No legal commitments have been made to date which limit the governing board's discretion in any way. So that concludes my presentation. I'll stop there.
Rich, this is Rob Johnson. I wanted you to go back up a little bit and just clarify something about how the assumption of the chief job by the deputy chief within the chain of command. I mean, that's a different thing than we're talking permanent succession to the chief. But could you address chain of command and the replacement or disability or death or whatever of the chief or stepping down, at least what that within the chain of command, what that temporarily does to the deputy chief?
Sure. There's a provision in the deputy chief's contract that indicates that he will assume the duties of the fire chief when the fire chief is gone. I mean, what that was intended to cover are situations where the fire chief might be out because of an injury or vacation or just, away from the regional fire authority for a period of time. In those periods of absences, the deputy chief would fulfill that role of sort of an acting fire chief capacity. But there's nothing in that agreement that makes that kind of a permanent succession to the fire chief. That was just fill the void while the fire chief is away.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, that partly I want to get into that a little deeper on for a minute. And I want to ask if the board is deciding to do a search and selection process where we're going to search for a successor for chief and select from who we, find during that search, that may take some time. That may take a few months involved for the searching and the final selection. And if the existing chief is stepping down on March 31st as chief, So, according to what you said, Deputy Chief Kraske would be chief or acting chief or designated chief or whatever, but would the board need to specifically name him interim chief to kind of keep him going on that during that search period? Now he may be competing. He may be in the search himself, for the job, because that's not excluded at all. And I don't mean it to be, but I'm just saying, do we have to change his designation from acting chief to interim chief, or would we need to get some outside person, maybe a retired chief from outside, to be an interim chief for a few months during that period while we're trying to sort out through the search and selection process?
Okay, so I understand your question. Under the existing deputy chief contract, I believe that Chief Kraske falls into that role, assumes the duties of fire chief if Chief Cermak is no longer serving in that capacity. I think the board has two choices. One, just to allow that to happen, or secondly, to bring in an interim fire chief until a permanent fire chief is found. I think the board has either of those options available to it.
Okay. Could I ask what your experience in that has been? Have you seen a preference in other departments where you've operated?
It doesn't come up. It doesn't come up all that often. I think it's really that's a board decision, and I'm not sure that I can say that it happens more often one way than another. I think it's a kind of a case by case determination. And the board needs to decide what's best for the agency.
Okay. I'd like to invite the board to ask any other questions of Rich Davis at this time, anything regarding this subject. So.
Well, basically, my question was asked because I was concerned that I had the impression that we were required to go through another selection process, but what I'm hearing from you is no, we can, as you put it, we can do either the competitive process or we can promote within. And I didn't have that interpretation in earlier discussions that we all had. So thank you for clarifying that we can do a lateral.
Okay.
Yeah, as I understand it, we can develop the process that we want.
Yeah.
So, if it's an interview or if it's a 3-series testing process, that's what we're tasked with.
Right. Al, go ahead.
Is there a difference between acting and interim?
I think it's more semantics than anything.
Okay.
I don't think there's a material difference.
Okay. As a follow-up to that, can the board condition an interim chief with maybe more limitations than a regular permanent chief? I mean, regarding terminations or promotions or board review of any of their actions?
I think the board has ultimate authority over that. Of course, when you let's say that you were bringing somebody from the outside to serve as an interim fire chief. You would negotiate a contract, just like you have a contract with Chief Kraske and a contract with Chief Cermak. You would negotiate a contract and put in whatever terms and conditions you felt were appropriate, and that the other party would agree to. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but you kind of have, you have
that's
flexibility.
what I wanted to know, but okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Are there any other questions from board members for Mr. Davis? Greg, anything else? Rick, do you have any questions you want to ask?
Not at this time.
Okay, because otherwise I'm going to hold Rich there, but close down the workshop, and then we'll just go into executive session, have our discussions, and then go home. So, because they're not taking the action afterwards. So, Okay, well, thank you for attending. Appreciate it. And we'll move to executive session here in a few minutes when the room's cleared. So thank you.
How,
Oh, 20 to 30?
Till 5.
Okay, yeah, what time is that? 30, okay, well, that might still get us out by 5, okay. Yeah, well, let's just make it 5 o'clock. Okay, I'm gonna,
Are we good?
Oh, wait.
okay, I'm sorry. Calling it back into public order, is there any, board, commissioner comments, for the public before we adjourn?
Well, is this all firefighters that are coming in? Okay, then I will hold off on mine until
Okay.
our next meeting.
Okay, Rick, anything from you?
No, nothing further. Thank you.
Nothing okay. Don't have any more public comments at this time, so, okay, motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Okay.